I will listen to people. I listen to what you got to say, because I feel you have an opinion just like anything else. I'm good. I think I call myself a good listener. That's my best quality. Secondly, don't worry about things. So I don't worry about things. It's whatever's going to be is going to be. So we just make the best of whatever situation you're in. My name is Catherine Freeman. I'm now 91 years old. I've lived in Los Angeles for about 59 years. My mother died when I was 3 years old, and I was raised by my grandmother until I was about 12. And I have one sister. She's with me now, but she's 2 years younger than I am. When we lived with my grandmother, we lived in Norfolk, Virginia. I remember going to church with her on Sunday morning, and we went to a church called St. Paul, and we would walk all the way from our house to the church. My grandmother also used to wash clothes on Mondays, and she would iron on Tuesday. I remember her hanging all the clothes on the clotheslines, and sometimes it would rain, and we had to rush out there real quick and try to pull the sheets and pillowcases and all these things off the lines. So that's one of the big memories I have about my grandmother. I had a little dog named Beauty, and she was a white French poodle. And I loved her more than anything. I couldn't think of anything I loved more than that little dog. I was a good student, and I was good at reading, English, and history. Those were my favorite subjects. My worst subjects were science and mathematics. I wasn't good at that. After high school, I joined the Air Force. The Air Force had been linked with the Army, but in 1947, I believe that it separated itself and became a complete entity by itself. So by the time I joined the Air Force, it was 1952. We still were wearing khaki uniforms and wearing little Abner shoes during our basic training, but we did have the blue flight caps, and that was the only thing we had that was blue. The women had been living at what was called Kelly Field, which was down in San Antonio, Texas. But by the time I got there in 1952 in February, they had moved to Lackland Air Force Base. We lived in 2 dormitories. All the other base was mostly all male. So we got to go to the dining hall where the men ate, and we also had to do KP duty over there. As you know, as women, we were kind of looked at as being unusual because they weren't used to having women on Lackland Air Force Base at that time. So we lived in 2 buildings, didn't have any furniture except the bunk bed that you were sleeping in and a foot locker. That's all you had. The windows were all soaped up because they didn't have curtains or shades or anything. There was no grass growing anywhere. It was like a barren ground, and we would go out and pick up rocks and cigarette butts, what we call clearing and cleaning our area. So it was interesting, and because I lived in a room where there were 4 girls to a room, and I lived in a room that had one Caucasian. She was from California. One Mexican, she was from Texas, and was one from Hawaii. So we were surprised to see her because we didn't realize people were coming from Hawaii to join the military. But at that time, it wasn't a state yet. And of course me, and I was from New Orleans, Louisiana, because that's where I came, it was the last place that I lived before I went into the service. So it was interesting. We called it the international room because we had somebody from every nationality. After I left the basic training, we went to, I was sent to Houston, Texas, and that was Ellington Air Force Base. And at Ellington Air Force Base, I was put on a ward to work as a hospital attendant. So after about a year, the nurses were impressed with what I was able to do and how I was able to learn how to do a lot of things quickly. I got promoted to what was called ward master. That would be called now a nurse NCOIC, which was a non-commissioned officer in charge. Because I got to do all kind of jobs, put equipment together, order supplies, give shots. I did vital signs, took care of patients pre-op, post-op, all kind of things. So the nurses, as I said, were impressed with that. So they suggested that I would go to nursing school. You should go to nursing school. So they went about finding a school that they thought would be a good fit. And it was in Philadelphia. It was called Philadelphia General Hospital Nursing School. So that's where I was sent. I was there for 3 years as a student nurse. And as a student nurse at a city hospital, and so we were not only in training, we also had to work 4 hours a day. We would go to class from 8 o'clock in the morning to say 12 noon. And from 12 noon to maybe 8 o'clock at night, we were on the job working. Then after nursing school, we went on to the VA hospital in Philadelphia. I signed up to work there. So it was interesting because we had veterans from the Spanish-American War vet. If you can remember, think about a veterans that was in the Spanish-American War. I think we had 1 or 2 of them. We had many World War II veterans. That was the bulk of our patients. We'd also had World War I veterans. A few of them are there too. We used to learn songs from them. They would tell us stories about their experiences during their time in the service. And they tell us many things that, as I said, patients don't get to talk to the nurse about now. So after I worked at the VA in Philadelphia for a couple of years, I decided I wanted to enhance my skills because there were a lot of things we couldn't do as nurses. So I went into the Navy as a Navy nurse. And there I learned how to do all kind of procedures that I would not have known how to do before. What we did, we spent a lot of time training the corpsman, because the Navy corpsman was like a doctor, because a lot of times on small ships, on small boats and ships, they were the medical department. In order to do that, you had to know how to do some of those things too. So that's where I learned how to, draw blood and put down tubes and start IVs and do all kind of things like that, more technical things. So, but the black people were very, very scarce in the Navy, as far as the officers were concerned. And by being a nurse, I was an officer. So we had to live, all the white nurses found housing. They didn't have any problem at all. But when we would apply for a housing, go and see something or hear about something or read about someplace, all of a sudden when they saw us, and it was only 2 of us, we came into the Navy together. There's only 2 of us. And when we would go and look at these places, they would tell us, well, it was already taken. We had a hard time finding a place to live, so we lived in the YWCA for about 3 or 4 months. And after that, we just gave in because we knew we weren't going to find what we wanted. And we wanted something that was close to the hospital, you know, in a good neighborhood. And we weren't going to be able to find it. So we finally found a neighborhood where there was, you know, the black people lived and blacks and Hispanics lived. So we moved into this apartment house. And the people were very nice. We didn't have any problem with the people. But we were just disappointed we couldn't live where we wanted to live. So we kind of got along with that. But we found that by us being the only two black nurses, it posed some problems too, because when we would go to different affairs, and in the Navy, as an officer, you had to go to a lot of little dinner parties and things that, you know, probably you and I would not have normally gone to, but you have to go to them. But we found that white officers had trouble communicating with us. Now the men wasn't too much of a problem, it was the women. So we would try to talk with our chief nurse, but she did not know how to talk to us. She was telling us about how she had a nanny when she was a little girl and so forth, and little things like that. And you know, she really didn't know what to say to us. After I'd been in the Navy a couple of years, I came out and went back to the VA in Philadelphia. And because of being in the Navy and being in a leadership role like that, they put me in charge of a ward. So I was in charge of the orthopedics ward, and also I had another assignment to be in charge of the ear, nose, and throat department. I got to do the administrative part, the education part, the research part, and the clinical part of it. And the clinical part of it is the part I liked a lot. I came out to Los Angeles in 1964, I believe. And I met a young man that I thought was very charming. I enjoyed being with him. He was a musician, and he also worked at the LA County Art Museum. So we spent a lot of time together during my vacation because I met him through a friend of ours. And I decided he couldn't live without me and I couldn't live without him, so we got married. So after we got married, I had to move from Philadelphia back, back to California. So that's how I ended up in Los Angeles. We moved, first we lived on Venice Boulevard, and near Crenshaw. At that time, it was integrated, so we had Japanese neighbors, and we had white neighbors, and we had black neighbors. So life was pretty good then. Well, I think I've had a great life, to tell you the truth. What I missed is having a mother, because my mother-in-law was a very good acting mother. In fact, she and I were very close until her death. My life, otherwise, I enjoyed being with my father because he taught us a lot of things and taught us how to dress and how to act as ladies all the time. I enjoyed being just a person who went to church, a person who was interested in what was happening in her community, and just kind of took part in things. The only thing I regret is I never learned how to skate. I never learned how, and you can believe this, I was in the Navy and couldn't swim, but I learned how to float, but they could not teach me how to swim. Most of the young people nowadays, they're far advanced than I was at their age. So the only thing I can tell them is be cool. Just be cool. Don't stretch yourself out and make yourself to be more than you think you are. You just, take it easy and be kind to people. Be kind to your parents in particular, and to take the time to learn everything you can learn about everything. I've seen young people who run right over you, have no respect for you, and as I said, as an older person now, I feel that we had to respect older people, and that's not done now. So be respectful for older people, and particularly take care of you, being friendly and good with your parents.